Hello, everyone. You're watching New World News. I'm Jamie Starr. On this episode, we're going to cover the gamification of life and society, and I want to say that this is one of my fears coming to life, where I continually say to myself, I feel like I'm living in a dystopic science fiction movie, and this is a step towards the Hunger Games, I feel like. Once you see these two videos I'm going to play for you, you'll see how um, I don't know. I feel like once death panels and we turn into like China, where you'll get your head blown off for speaking out against the government, I feel like they're going to take the lowest people with the scores in these games and put them into like a coliseum to, kill each other with javelins or laser guns or whatever. So let's check these out and see what they've started in China.
Okay, so one of you recently brought this to our attention, and when we first started looking into it, we couldn't believe it. Even now, looking at this, I keep thinking that there's gotta be something about this that I just don't understand. Like, I must be reading this wrong. It's just so clearly something out of dystopian science fiction, and yet, here it is in our world, and people are actually embracing it. Apparently, China has gamified being an obedient citizen. Going under the innocuous name of Sesame Credit, China has created a score for how good a citizen you are. And that's one of the scariest things I've heard in quite a while. It's jointly run by Tencent, yes, that Tencent, the one that owns Riot Games and has a significant share in Epic and Activision Blizzard, and also the ascendant Chinese competitor to Amazon, Alibaba, hence the name Sesame. So the owners of China's largest social networks have partnered with the government to create something akin to the US credit score. But instead of measuring how regularly you pay your bills, it measures how obediently you follow the party line. They dredge data from your social network, so if you post pictures of Tiananmen Square or share a link about the recent stock market collapse, your Sesame credit score goes down. Share a link from the state-sponsored news agency about how good the economy's doing, and your score goes up. But Alibaba and Tencent are also the largest online retailers in China, so Sesame Credit is also able to pull data from your purchases. If you're making purchases the state deems valuable, like work shoes or local agricultural products, your score goes up. If you import anime from Japan, though, down the score goes. And this score has real-world consequences. Like many games, Sesame Credit has tiers and levels, and having a high score gives you special benefits, like making it easier to get the paperwork you need to travel, or making it easier to get a loan. Now, currently, there are no consequences for having a low score, but there's been talk about implementing penalties once the system becomes mandatory in 2020. Penalties like slower internet speeds for low-scoring citizens, or even restricting the jobs that a low-scoring person's allowed to hold. But there's one more layer to Sesame Credit, and here's where this goes from being repulsive to downright insidious. Because this is all part of a social network, it also scans your friends. So you will lose points for having friends with low obedience scores. And it tells you this. At any point, anybody can check anyone else's score. And when you check your own score, Sesame Credit provides a handy map of your friends to show you who's dragging your score down. Have you ever had that thing where you play a game with somebody who wasn't doing very well, and you've tried to change their behavior to make them do better? Or maybe after a while you just sort of stopped playing with the people who were holding you back? That's at the heart of how this system works. And it's also what makes this one of the most terrifying tools of authoritarian oppression I've ever read about. Because, like, mass censorship, jail time, assassinations, those are all big, messy implements for keeping a population in line. That messiness and severity foster resentment, eventually rebellion. They're expensive, they're unwieldy. In the end, those tools are impossible to maintain. But social pressure? Ostracization? Those things are free. They happen on their own. And as a government tool, they don't have nearly the same potential for going embarrassingly, disastrously wrong. With a system like this in place, a government doesn't even have to tell neighbor to spy on neighbor, to rat each other out, because that's all built into a seemingly innocuous game system. The government need not step in. Re-education will be handled for them by friends, classmates, and relatives who want to maintain a high score. And if that doesn't work, then potentially dangerous ideas still end up quarantined by the social isolation this game system causes. Express or help to spread too many radical ideas, and people will stop associating with you. And not because some jackbooted thug showed up at the door with threats, but simply because associating with somebody with those ideas will lose them all the privileges they've worked so hard to obtain. It recontextualizes obedience to an authoritarian regime. In the past, you obeyed such powers because you were afraid. Fear kept you motivated. But fear is negative. It fosters resentment. The world we're stepping into instead uses positive reinforcement to promote being subservient to the will of the regime. It's Big Brother's kinder, gentler hand. And the things that make this scary is that we've seen the efficacy of this only too well in games. You may not actually know this, but when World of Warcraft was in its early stages of development, it had an unrested penalty mechanic that started limiting experience gains for players who had played too much. And players hated it. They resented it and they complained about it every day. So, after brainstorming on this for a while, Blizzard had the idea to simply change how the mechanic was presented. Without changing any of the existing numbers or systems, they started referring to the unrested experience penalty state as normal and made it the default. And they started calling the original normal experience gain state as rested. That's all they changed, and everybody loved it. People would log on every day just to get that bonus. Positive reinforcement works wonders. But unlike World of Warcraft, which built a system just to get people to embrace meaningless grinding, Sesame Credit has built a system to get people to enjoy falling into line. Now, the system's not mandatory yet. It's opt-in right now, but it's going to be mandatory in 2020, and there's a terrible brilliance to phasing that in. The early adopters are going to be people excited about this system, people who are already patriotic and are eager for anything that'll help display that patriotism to the world. And as early adopters, they're going to talk it up. They're going to give it an air of being positive and fun. Then it'll be foisted on the society as a whole. More than that, though, the early adopters are going to compete. Already, you can see hundreds of thousands of tweets displaying people's high scores or showing off the new milestones they've hit, giving hard numbers to their patriotism, and giving them bragging rights for being the most patriotic, most right-thinking person they know. And that's gonna set the tone for how Sesame Credit is intended to be used, as a competition to see who can agree with the government the most. We've talked about propaganda games on this channel before, but for all the time we've spent examining and deconstructing terrible games that espouse hate, and for all the studies on propaganda games James has done, this is the use of game systems that frightens me the most. Because to most people, Sesame Credit will seem benign, perhaps even fun. It's a conversation starter, something to share with your friends. But it's making heavy use of all the psychological motivators that we game makers deploy in scoring systems and ladders and levels, systems that we build to shape play habits and to keep people coming back. Like I said, I'm still kind of in a state of disbelief looking at this. If any of you are watching this from China, please tell me if I'm misunderstanding this thing, because I would love to be wrong about it. If not, well, I hope this episode can do some small amount to help the fight to keep such a system from becoming mandatory. For everyone in the rest of the world, I hope this helps remind us all how important it is to be aware and to be vigilant. All of these gamification techniques we've learned through making games offer incredible opportunities for making this world a better, more engaging place. But every great tool carries with it the potential for misuse. And it's on us as a community who understands this amazing new medium to do what we can to stop that. We'll see you next week. Hey everybody.
Alright, so I didn't think of this before, but I guess this kind of ties into the Gamergate scandal that had been going on and how political correctness had been seeping into games, and this could maybe even be expressed through some of the stuff in the new South Park, where you see it being very much about political correctness and the fact that they're saying political correctness is being pushed by advertising agents and stuff. Which it just sort of gives it this whole kind of fascist overlay, which we're going to see in combination with the next video, where it talks about the gamification of everything and how, like they said, what you buy will determine certain points and everything. So you see these big corporations in bed with the government, and that's not capitalism, that's fascism. So now let's check out this next clip.
Okay, anyway, so beyond technology, there's all these other ways that games are creeping into places we didn't think about. Fantasy football's been around forever. It used to be a nerdly game for nerdly nerds. Now everyone plays it. Your grandmother probably plays fantasy football. Like, everybody is playing it. It's just everywhere. It's a game that leeches off a game. Geocaching. Because it's cooler to go for a walk in the woods when there's a treasure chest at the end. The Simpsons had their 20th anniversary, and Fox said, we're going to do a scavenger hunt. In each of the shows we have this week, we're going to hide a Simpsons reference in every show. Watch all the shows, find the references, and we'll give you a prize. Watching television became a game. DARPA wanted to figure out what are people able to figure out through crowdsourcing, so they made a game. They put these red balloons all over the country and said, let's see who can find them first. And everybody raced to find the red balloons and did DARPA's research for them. Weight Watchers, they have this whole point system, which is very much like a game. And if anybody has the new Ford hybrid car, okay, I got it. It's got a speedometer, and then it's got a gas gauge. And what are those leaves? What the hell is that? The more gas you save, the more the plant grows. They put a virtual pet in your car, and it changes the way people drive. Games have crept out, and they're going everywhere, right? Oh, and so, but now here's a question I'm going to put to you. Who do you think is designing these games? Skilled game designers? No, not really. Just like whoever's there is doing it. Imagine if skilled game designers get a hold of these kinds of things. Lee Sheldon is a great example. He's a game designer, some of you I'm sure know. He's teaching at University of Indiana now. And one of the first things he did was, you know what, this grading system kind of sucks. Because school's a game, right? You go, you get scores, you take, and you come out, there's a leaderboard, And he said, I'm going to do this better. He doesn't give out grades for each assignment. He gives out experience points. And you level up through the class. And so class attendance is up. Class participation is up. Homework is turned in often and better because it's a better structure. It's a better system. Imagine when the game designers get a hold of all this garbage. The gas points and the shopping points and your coffee points and your airline points. All these points and points and points. Imagine when they're all designed. And when they can be sensed. And these things start to come together a little bit. Because sensors are what's happening now. That's what's changing things. Natal is going to come out. And it's got cameras. It's going to sense every joint of your body. The DSi is out, and it's got cameras, and no one knows what they're for. But someone's going to figure it out. And technology keeps getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And there's going to be sensors everywhere detecting so many things in your life. And these things are going to be able to be used for gameplay. So we're moving on a road towards disposable technology. If anyone here ever bought a Furby, right? The Furby costs like $20, $30. It has more technology in it than they used to put a man on the moon. And many people have now thrown out their Furbies because it's kind of dumb and they throw it out. It's disposable technology. We're, before too long, going to get to the point where every soda can, every cereal box is going to be able to have a CPU, a screen, and a camera on board it, and a Wi-Fi connector so that it can be connected to the internet. And what will that world be like? Well, I think it'll be like this. You'll get up in the morning to brush your teeth. And the toothbrush can sense that you're brushing your teeth. And so, hey, good job for you. 10 points for brushing your teeth. And it can measure how long, and you're supposed to brush them for 3 minutes. And you did. Good job. You brushed your teeth for 3 minutes. And so you get a bonus for that. And, hey, you brushed your teeth every day this week, another bonus. And who cares? The toothpaste company, the toothbrush company, the more you brush, the more toothpaste you use, they have a vested financial interest. You go to breakfast, there's the cornflakes. On the back, there's a little web game that you can play. While you eat, instead of reading the back, you play a game while you eat your cornflakes. And you get that, and you get 10 points just for eating the cornflakes. And then it turns out you can see your list of friends who also have cornflakes and the scores that they got because your Wi-Fi and Facebook connected and everything. And so, you get 5 bonus points because you just beat out one of your friends at the cornflakes game. So then you go and you get on the bus. The bus? Why am I taking the bus? You're taking the bus because the government has started giving out all kinds of bonus points to people who use public transportation. And you can use these points for tax incentives. And while you're sitting on the bus riding to work and you're playing your little Tetris and getting a few points here and there, you suddenly remember, I had this dream last night. I had a dream that my mother was dancing with this giant Pepsi can. And then you realize, oh yeah, the REMtertainment system, right, which is the thing you put in your ear and it can sense when you enter REM sleep. And then it starts putting little advertisements out there to try and influence your dreams. And then you can fill out a little form. It's a test to see if those things came through into your dreams. And if they did, then big points for you, right? And you can use these points at the grocery store or whatever. And you get to work on time. Good job. Excellent. You got to work on time. And you get a special bonus, I don't know, for something else. Maybe because you've been there on time all week. And then there's your office mate, and he's like, check out, I got the new digital tattoo, right? It's a tattoo that you can change the image because it's got like e-ink in it in your arm, right? So you can change the image all the time to whatever you want, but a lot of people are using Tattoogle AdSense, right? And so he's got the ads up, and you're thinking, you're really dumb because Tattoogle AdSense has light sensors in it, and so that when your arm is covered, you're not going to get any money from people seeing the ads. And you show them how yours is lower on the arm so it's more exposed, so you get more points for it. And just then, you realize that the two of you have your ads suddenly synchronized just by chance. And so, you say, link sync, and you get 30 points for noticing a link sync that the two of us had that. And he says, Pop-Tarts, because they're both Pop-Tart ads, and the system is listening, and it can tell that we said Pop-Tarts. And then we do high five, because the body electricity sensors can tell when you do a high five. And that's the rule. That's how the game works. That when the ads line up, because it makes you pay more attention to the ads. Because that's how these games will work. The games will be tricking you to pay more attention to ads. So then you go to lunch, and you've had Dr. Peppers all week, and so you got to have another Dr. Pepper because you got 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, and then you have another one, and there's another one, but there's a special with Dr. Pepper this week. If you have 5 Dr. Peppers in a week, 500 bonus points, so you're definitely going to take advantage of that. And then you got a meeting at another building. It's a half a mile away, and you could take the shuttle over, but you decide, I'm going to walk because the health insurance plan that you're on gives you bonus points if you walk like more than a mile each day, and we can sense that easily, through your digital shoes. And if you get your heart rate up about a certain amount, then you get more bonus points from your health insurance company. So then you're going shopping on the way home, and man, this is like a place you can get a lot of points, and it's really complicated, so you don't figure it out. You let your app figure it out. It looks at all the point systems you have, it looks at what you want, and then it tells you which ones to buy in order to get, ooh, wow, a lot of points just because I made good choices shopping. And then you get home and your daughter's like, oh, I got my report card. And you're like, oh, good job. You're getting 2,000 points from the state for getting such good grades. And you're getting 5,000 as a parent from the Obama bonus for the good parenting bonus, which you're excited because you can use that as tax relief. And then you say, hey, wait a minute. Did you practice your piano? And she's like, yeah, I practiced my piano. Well, what score did you get? He's like, oh, well, I got 150,000. 150,000, that's the best you've ever had on that particular sonata. That's 9,000 points given by the Arts Council for your scholarship fund. So, go you, right? And then you go and watch television, and I don't even want to talk about this. It's just points. Because there's eye sensors, right, that can tell when you're watching the ads. So you want to watch the ads, certain ads especially, because you're going to get points for them. And your remote has a little screen on it and with a little camera, so you can kind of be live chat with other people are watching the show, and you play all these games, and you get all these points while you watch television. That would be a very natural thing to do. Then finally, the day's over. You're going to bed. You sit down with your new Kindle 3.0, which of course has the eye tracking sensor in it that can tell what you've read and how much you've read of the book. And it's important to read the whole book because then if you leave a review on Amazon, you'll get super bonus points if it knows you read the whole book through. And as you finish the book, you're very surprised. Oh, did I mention that Microsoft acquired Amazon a couple of years back? But they did. And you get an achievement unlocked. This thing's been tracking you for 20 years. You've finished 500 novels. And this is like a big achievement, and you're thinking, I'm really embarrassed that my 500th novel was this dumb Star Trek novel that I'm reading, because I'm going to remember that forever. And then you start thinking about all these achievements and points and things, and realizing that, you have no idea what books your grandparents read or where they went on their daily basis, but these sensors that we're going to have on us and all around us and everywhere are going to be tracking and watching what we're doing forever. And our grandchildren will know every book that we read. That legacy will be there, will be remembered. And you get to thinking about how, wow, is it possible maybe that since all this stuff is being watched and measured and judged, that maybe I should change my behavior a little bit and be a little better than I would have been? And so it could be that these systems are just all crass commercialization and it's terrible, but it's possible that they'll inspire us to be better people if the game systems are designed right. Anyway, I'm not sure about all that, but I do know this stuff is coming. Man, it's got to come. What's going to stop it?
All right. So, as far as what he said at the end there, I don't know. I think there's such a problem in the world today with the younger generations and attention seeking and behavior like that, that I don't know if a constant spy state of sensors and all of this, and I mean, he basically spoke as if everyone would be able to know this data. It'll all be public. It's kind of like the Sesame credit system, and I don't know, it kind of scares the hell out of me. But it's because I see that technology does still have flaws, and I don't want to hand over that much power to it. And the corporatization of it all, again, very much like the South Park episode where the ads are there, and it's there for behavior modification, where it's trying to change the way you behave. And we say there's all those problems with corporations, and even YouTube videos, people can skip the ads, but this is how to outsmart people into paying attention to them, and how to really submerge themselves into the consumerism mindset. I think it was Shakespeare that said once that as long as money is going around, people will exist in a material world. And this could be the next step where they sort of phase out money and introduce these currency points, almost like the movie, I believe, In Time it was, where you had the bracelets, and for certain decisions it would cost a certain amount of time from your life, which is a very interesting perspective to look at things from. But I don't want it to be literal. Like, I don't want this gamification of every aspect of my life where the toothpaste company is going to know how many times I brushed my teeth and everything like that. It's essentially like we've gone from parents raising their children and molding and shaping the lives of their children to the state doing it. And with the state doing it, there was always influence in the latter, as it became a state matter, from big business and the military-industrial complex in terms of influencing the Department of Education. And now it just sort of seems like it's going to go take on the technological overlay and everything, where instead of them having you in an institution like a school or something, you're going to be able to be out in the world, and your behavior will just be modified by positive reinforcement or, negative reinforcement. Although from the Sesame credit video, it obviously seems that they're trying to go away from the negative reinforcement side of things. So, I don't know, this could be used for so much bad, and I don't think it's going to inspire people. I think it's going to be very limiting, because then they're only going to be engaging as far as the point system allows them to. If there's, an idea of doing something outside of the box that there isn't a ranking pointed system for, would they even do it? So it just makes me wonder how this is all going to end up, and hopefully there'll be an island somewhere where I can just hide out from it all. But I wanted to show both of these videos, especially together, so that people can have an idea of the direction the world is going. And in terms of other videos, this is the stuff that makes me look at all the social justice stuff and just sort of laugh at it, because I see where society as a whole is at. And I mean, we're in the day and age of brain chips and complete gamification of society and spy states and everything like that, where it's like we're at a level that was only science fiction a very few years ago, and people want to fight about tribalism, which is an issue that's been going on for, forever, as long as documented history, basically. And it's like, are we going to sit here and argue about this stuff, or are we going to figure out whether we want our children raised in some sort of pink goo, like the Matrix, with a wire plugged into their brain, where they're just in an artificial simulator or something, like where there's, you have B.O.B. coming out recently talking about cloning, and that it's been going on since the 40s with the Nazis, and all of these scientific things where he's realizing there's like a breakaway society at this point, where there is a class of people that know about these sciences and where they're really at. DARPA, like you mentioned, DARPA had the internet in the 60s. What I'm talking to you right now on, they had in the 60s. The modern person didn't get it until somewhere in the 90s, later 2000s, when the speeds kicked up with cable and everything. So there's a group that is already, has this super smart technology, and they're just sort of giving us what we feel like when they want us to have it. I remember telling my mom that the license plate cameras weren't license plate cameras, that they were facial recognition cameras and could tell who's walking down the street. She, of course, laughed it off. Oh, you must be. That's crazy. No, it's just looking at license plates. And sure enough, the next day on Facebook, she logs in and it's automatically like, hey, do you want us to tag all your friends for you? We've been running facial recognition on everyone. And I told her, you have to realize if Facebook is giving you this technological tool for free, it's already been used in every other more practical, military and political policing manner. It must be with them if they're giving it to you for your fucking friends. I mean, come on. You'd be naive to think it isn't. It's what it was invented for. So, just some things to be aware of. The world is very quickly moving in a very crazy direction, where between virtual reality and life in and of itself being gamified, it'll be very startling. And one thing, though, to keep in mind, people should keep in mind, that we're really living through one of the most important moments as far as long-term moment being 30, 40 years, whatever, in terms of big history. But we're living in one of the most important moments in human history and everything. So you should never take that for granted. People living during these times are going to see things other generations could have never even imagined. We are that's why the science fiction kind of dystopic idea is very fitting, because there are all these amazing breakthroughs and everything that people couldn't have dreamed of, but the downside of it seems very down. So we're not finding that balance yet, and I feel like things are going to get rockier before we do, but hopefully things will balance out soon. I am optimistic. So this was New World News. I'm Jamie Starr. I hope you enjoyed.